So first question about focus and stop procrastinating. So Jamie, how can we focus more and stop procrastinating in a world that is full of shiny notifications and digital distractions?
Well, the thing that occurs to me in relation to that is, and I'd be tempted to put procrastination and focus in different categories. So if we start with
You can do
procrastination,
that.
if we start with procrastination, it looks to me like almost all the difficulties that people have with procrastination is because they believe that they need to feel a certain way in order to take action. And so for instance, if we take the structure of procrastination, let's say I've got something which is, I've got to fill out my tax return, and it's like it's due by a certain point. It's like, but when I think about doing it, I get a bad feeling. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It'll be boring. And blah, blah. Well, the issue isn't that I've got some task that I don't want to do. The issue isn't that there's a feeling that happens when I think about it. The issue is I believe that that feeling is telling me about the future task, but that's not true. That can't be true. That feeling in the moment is telling you about the goggles you're wearing in that moment and nothing else. And so a question that I've found quite useful, because here's the thing. My basic assertion is that the thing that's going to help someone out is an insight into where their experience is coming from and who they really are. Another word for insight is realization, which just means having our perceptions brought more closely into line with reality. Well, the fact of the matter is, if someone's procrastinating because they believe their feelings are telling them about the thing they don't want to do, they're out of touch with reality. And we all are that person sometimes. I'm sometimes that person. And when I'm procrastinating, it genuinely doesn't occur to me in that moment, oh, I'm just feeling thought. It genuinely seems to me like I'm feeling the tax return or whatever it is that I'm putting off. And so the question, where do you believe your experience is coming from right now? Where do you believe it's coming from? And just taking a look at that and going, okay, is this a teddy bear? Is this a teddy bear? Am I believing that my feeling is coming from the future task? And to be honest with yourself, like if I think of the tax bill, I'm like, oh man, yeah, I do believe that. Indeed. Well, that's not possible. Like there's really something to be said for what this understanding gives you is kind of like a true false detector. It's like, is that possible? Is that true? It doesn't mean that you're always going to want to do the things you don't want to do. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be inspired and motivated to clean the toilets or whatever. What it means is that you can be honest with yourself about what's true and what's not true. It's like, if you know that the only thing it's possible to feel is your psychology in the moment, is the power of thought taking form in the moment, then you also know it's not possible for you to feel future events in the present. And I know it may sound too simple and like, what's that going to do for you? But what I found again and again and again is that as you look right at the truth of that, it does something for you. It can wake you up to who you really are and where your experience is coming from. And what you start to find is that you're able to move forward with things that may have seemed intolerably uncomfortable in the past. So the beauty of this isn't that it makes everything comfortable and inspiring and motivational. The beauty of it is it allows you to do difficult things. It allows you to find methods and approaches that work for you on a given occasion. So it's funny, when I think of focus, well, there are two aspects to it. One of them is focus or flow is a natural state for human beings. Okay, like we are built to be able to focus, and a lot of times what you find is that focus shows up when you're already in the game, when you're already taking action and moving forward in a certain direction, working on something and that sort of thing. But the other thing that comes with it is insight and realization will show you what works for you. So I'll give you an example. For me personally, I find that if I want to stay really focused, then it helps me to set a timer and say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, I'm only going to work on this one thing. And then anytime my head goes, oh, I would like to check Facebook or look at my email or scroll through Twitter, or I'm like, has the timer gone off yet? It's like, no. It's like, okay, keep working. You can do that when the timer goes off. So, but that occurred to me when I was in an insight friendly space and aware of what's going on. So it's not like you can never, use a tool or use an approach that helps you, but it's realizing that it's going to be the thing that helps you. I'll give you another example. When I wrote my book Results, okay, I got ready to write, and there were 24 chapters to write and one introduction plus front matter and end matter. And I got to the point where I had sort of a half decent draft done. But there was still a lot of work to do to get it to the point where I was really happy with it. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I do that? And how can I do it quickly? And how can I make it enjoyable and that sort of thing? And it occurred to me, oh, I'm going to make like a traffic light system. So for every chapter, I stuck up Post-it notes on the wall, one per chapter. And then when it went from half decent to good, I changed it to a new color. And when it went from good to excellent, I changed it to a new color. And so that allowed me to stay motivated and keep that sort of thing. But here's the thing. That probably won't work for the next book. That's the approach that came up to me for this book. The approach that I came up with for my first book was to send out a chapter a week to my mailing list. But that didn't work for this one. So it's about staying open to the fact that you have a source of insight and realization within you that's going to give you what you need to move forward and to take the next step. And knowing that focus is an innate capacity for every human being. We all have that ability. And it's about understanding how to kind of understanding how your own creative process works and understanding what you've got going for you and where your experience is coming from. If you know where your experience is coming from, it's a lot easier to say no to the distractions that might pull you away.
True. It's very difficult and at the same time very easy then when you understand and when you have these realizations, if you as you call them, in a way, once you see that your experience is generated by thought, it creates a space that was not there before. And in that space, something else has the possibility to come up, like a sort of a wisdom. And you don't need anymore to search externally the technique of that famous author. You could have written a blog post on Medium, like how I wrote results my Sunday, the traffic light method, and probably would have gotten a lot of clicks, but truly it won't work for most people.
And this is it. The way I like to think about it is, there are all sorts of wonderful things that people have discovered and that you can learn about. Like I love that books exist and that people have figured cool stuff out. But when it comes to our own minds, there's a way that it already works. And we have this source of creativity, of insight, of realization, of good ideas. And so often when people write about, here's how you do such and such a thing, here's how you create a bestseller, or here's how you create, they're taking the things that they created, the way I think about it is like apples grow on a tree, and you can pick some apples and they can be delicious, but trying to get other people's techniques and approaches to fit for you is like taking apples off one tree and sticking them onto another, when actually the power in the apple metaphor is in the tree and is in the energy behind life that has it produce fresh apples again and again and again. There's an incredible source of abundance there, and that abundance of ideas and insight and creativity and innovation is there. It's there in every human being, and we have this, what you described as wisdom. We have this inner guidance system that can give us what we need when we need it. And it's just a matter of recognizing that it's there, recognizing that that's what we've got going for us.
I totally agree.
And this one, I feel that is very true also for tools. Because, for example, about how to stay more focused, a lot of people, they are just getting crazy about finding the perfect tool. There is like a software, I don't know if you ever heard about it, it's called Focus Me.
I haven't.
It's a software that you can install on your computer, on your Mac, on your phone, and you can say to this software, okay, if I spend too much time on social media, just block that app, block that application, and all sorts of things. For like for newspapers, you can do exactly the same. For video games, and for a while, I tried that software. I was like, that's actually very cool, and it was helping me to just realize how I was spending my time. Then at a certain moment, I realized that that was not working for me anymore. And it was not like using it more was making me more focused on what I was doing. And then I was like stopping a moment and try to realize just what happened there. And it's exactly the same thing as the apple tree that you described. Like that was like a delicious apple for one period. But then after a while, it was not good for me anymore. And I just had to let it go. And that's actually good that I realized, because it was very tempting to just message everyone that I knew, send a message to my email list and tell them, guys, I have the solution for the focus, just download the software and it's done. Okay, next problem. And it doesn't work that way.
That's such a great example, because I think it, you know, and it's kind of natural for us that it genuinely seems to us like the power in the world is outside. It seems to us like it's in the teddy bear or in the technique or in the app. And so we attribute the power to that thing, that method, that technique, that object, never realizing that the power was always in you. I remember years and years ago, I used to smoke cigarettes, okay? This is like 20 years ago. And I read this book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. So I read this book and I didn't like it very much. And then partway through the book, he uses this metaphor of the nicotine monster. And he said, you know, ever since you started smoking, you've been feeding a nicotine monster. And when you stop, that monster is going to start dying. And you'll feel the pangs of craving. And that's the feeling of the monster dying. The addiction is dying. And I was like, oh my God, I had an insight. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I didn't smoke again. And so every time someone told me they were trying to quit smoking, I would be like, let me tell you about the nicotine monster. And I would tell them, and they'd keep smoking. I thought the power was in the metaphor. But the power is in the capacity for insight and realization that we all have. And you know, a metaphor for insight and realization is when you have a software update on your computer or your phone. So, you know, your phone says version number 11.2.3 now ready for update. Do you want to install? And you hit the button, you go, yeah. And it goes updating. And if you want, you can hit the button that says, do you want more info? And it tells you a little paragraph about the update. But the paragraph isn't the update. The update is written in machine code. It's written in something that only computer programmers understand. Well, When you have an insight, you might get an idea that comes with it, like, oh, I just need to focus my attention more wisely, or I just need to, stop with the distraction. You might have some words that come with it or some story that comes with it. But the power is in the fresh, new perceptual reality that's being updated into your perception. Like, that's where the power is. It's not in the story. It's not in the metaphor. It's not in the way of explaining something. Like even the teddy bear metaphor, which I know for some people, it just knocks their socks off and they go, wow, that's so clear. Other people are like,
Like what?
get
Yes,
it.
yes. What the hell?
But
Yeah,
it's
I
a
know.
good metaphor. It's like, no, the power isn't in the metaphor. The power's in the capacity for insight and realization that's
True.
there at the heart of every human being.
Mhm.